Hello, it's Reija and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my October comics reading wrap-up. I hope you will enjoy. I didn't read a whole ton of comics during October, but I feel like I have a lot to talk about of the comics that I did read. So first up, I read the 11th volume of The Promised Neverland by Kaiu Shirai and Posuka Demizu, and I feel like the last two volumes were somewhere around 3 to 3.5 stars for me, and finally this 11th volume was a better volume. I gave it 4 stars. It was a little heavy on the exposition, but I enjoyed that the whole fighting resistance fight arc came to an end, and we got some interesting world building tidbits and a sort of game plan for the characters. Some characters got culminations for part of their arcs, which was nice. So all in all, this was a refreshing volume, and I enjoyed the conclusion to the resistance fight arc, or the Goldie Pond arc. So I feel very optimistic going forward with the series now, because it feels like it's going back to its roots, which were about problem solving and sort of mystery solving and stuff like that, and not about the fighting. So you might know that I'm not always the biggest fan of shonen battle series or the fighting, because I just feel like it's sort of like becomes tedious to follow. So I'm really eager to see where the series is going next, and the 12th volume is already out, and I'm waiting for my library to get it so that I can read it. So yeah, 4 stars to the volume 11 of The Promised Neverland. And then I read the first 2 volumes of Ooku, The Inner Chambers by Fumi Yoshinaga. This is an alternative history, sort of science fiction tale about an alternative Tokugawa shogunate. You know, you have the Warring States period with Oda Nobunaga, etc. And then you have the Tokugawa shogunate, and after that the Meiji Restoration and the restoration of the imperial family in the 1800s. So this takes place in the 1700s, and it looks at what would happen if there was a sort of plague that targeted young men, and the male population started to plummet. So the first volume gives you sort of like the short and fast of it, how the plague got started. It talks you through the 80 years that followed, like how the society would need to change, and how previously male-dominant professions then had to be taken over by women because there just weren't enough men to do them. And it looks at it to the point of view of like commoners as well as royalty. And in this first volume we follow the character of Yunoshin, who decides to go work in the inner chambers of the shogun, or the ruler of Japan, because he can't marry the person that he wants to marry, because he's of like his family can't afford to pay dowry, basically. And he goes to work in these inner chambers, and it's sort of like a fish out of water story that follows his experiences in the inner chambers, and how the men are treated there, how the customs differ from what he's used to in the outside, etc. But he's not the main character. He's sort of the introductory character, and then after about, I would want to say, half of this book, we start to follow different characters. And in this next volume, we go back in time when the plague was just starting, and we see firsthand how the society was changing and how difficult it actually was for women to obtain these dominant positions and stuff. So these books really talk about like gender roles and the history behind that, and it's interesting to kind of see that Fumi Yoshinaga is a contemporary Japanese woman reviewing sort of Japan's gender history through the lens of a contemporary woman, but through the means of a historical setting. I find it fascinating, I find it interesting, and she has had a lot of interesting things to say in these volumes. I gave the first volume 3.5 stars because I didn't really like the character of Yunoshin, and I was really happy when like the story started to focus on someone else. And then this next volume I gave 4 stars. I would say that content warnings apply for attempted rape and rape. Just so you know, they aren't like really graphically shown on the page, but they are implied and sort of alluded to. But it's something you should take into consideration when you want to read this book. I really liked the art style. Fumi Yoshinaga has this very clean way of drawing, and like there's a lot of like contrast of black and white, and the pages aren't cluttered. There's a lot of like really empty spaces and use of empty space to emphasize the characters. I really enjoyed the art style, and I am going to continue on with the series. This has currently, I think, 14 or 15 volumes out, and my library has all of them, so I'm going to be reading on in the series and keeping you updated on my thoughts. But I would highly recommend this. The start to this series is definitely really interesting, and I feel like it's looking at very interesting topics. And there you have it. Those were all of the comics that I read during the month of October. Tell me in the comments if you are interested in any of this series, and yeah, I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye bye!